I'm a liberal man, and Donald Trump must be stopped.
That's nice. Do you stand for universal health care?
Well, in theory I do, but right now, we gotta protect the ACA. Then down the road, we can look back into it.
So that is a no?
In theory, it's a yes, but now is not the time.
Okay. What about the minimum wage? What about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour?
Great point. Everyone deserves a better deal. That's why I'm for raising your salary.
But to $15 an hour or a certain number?
Well, we can't do that everywhere, but we will definitely raise your salary.
Okay, not quite sure what that means, but, how about the environment? Where do you stand on fracking?
I love the environment. I will get us back on the table with the Paris Agreement, and I'll tell those companies to knock it off when it comes to polluting the air.
Fracking. Are you for it or against it?
You know, what's with the damn purity test? I'm against Trump. Isn't that enough?
I'm sorry, but if you want my vote, aren't I allowed to know exactly where you stand on the issues that are important to me? And if so, how is a purity test wrong?
What? I don't need your vote to win. And if Trump gets reelected, it's people like you that let it happen. Good day.
A story by Pasta Jardula and illustrated by Jackie Balance.
So, that was my little cartoon about purity test.
Yes,
Okay.
I love it. That was the cutest
I'm glad
cartoon.
you did. Well, I had to figure out a way to easily explain a purity test to everybody out there, because right now the Democrats, the establishment Democrats, are doing the same thing Republicans would do 12 to 15 years ago. Just give you a catchphrase, a bumper sticker, throw it out there to demonize you. And that's what they're using nowadays. They're saying, stop with the purity test. How dare you give them a purity test? You have to be practical.
Yeah.
The incrementalism is
Incremental change. Be realistic.
Yes,
Don't shoot for pie in the sky.
It's pie in the sky. So they're using this word as a purity test, this phrase, as something negative, when in actuality, I think it's one of the best things out there for us.
It's common sense. It's what people should automatically be asking for as constituents who are invested in their country and who have a lot to lose.
Yes.
It's a lot easier when you're a politician to, say, oh, incremental change, when you're not really suffering the consequences.
Well, where on the purity test do you think that the potential progressive candidates can slip on? In other words, we said this right off the bat. We talked about Elizabeth Warren.
Yes.
Where she is economically, she's great. She's for universal health care.
Correct.
She's putting these bank CEOs on display. She's a champion when it comes to economics. However, she has an issue with the war voting. That part of the purity test, and a lot of people, a lot of people put Obama in office to end the wars. And instead of just, ending the wars, he went from 2 countries to 7. In other words, he just used drones to bomb people, whatnot, instead of actual troops.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah, boots on the ground. Can a person like Elizabeth Warren be president if she does fail that part of the purity test? I mean, because we understand this, we said this before. We start off right off the bat. Question number 1 in the purity test, are you for single payer? If you're not for single payer, we're not even going on with the rest of that test.
No.
That's an all or nothing game right now at this point right now.
Single payer is,
Enough is enough. And when every industrialized country around the world can have a form of a single payer universal healthcare system, that's going to be number 1 on our purity test. So we don't even go there. I think number 2 is the environment, whether it become fracking, whatnot and stuff. Can a pro-fracking candidate who has progressive values win?
Not to me. I think that's definitely the difference between a corporate candidate and a candidate that's actually progressive, because the only reason that a candidate isn't accepting money or is a progressive candidate that isn't for fracking is because they're not taking money from these companies. Okay. So if they are pro fracking and they say they're for the environment, it's hypocritical, because
just like in the cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was one of the things too when it came to the platform, when you had Cornel West up there, whatnot. It was the fracking issue. Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama had a serious issue when it came to fracking. They sit there and they say, "Oh, we're for the environment," but they become, pro components of fracking, taking money from the fracking industry.
It's about the money. It's all about where the money goes, where they're getting their money, and which is why the main thing is to get money out of politics.
Yeah. could a progressive candidate fail on the minimum wage part when it comes to the purity test? In other words, say they're for single payer, say they're for ending fracking, but yet they don't feel that they want incremental change when it comes to the minimum wage. In other words, they don't feel they can put $15 an hour in Arkansas, but they can do it in California.
I think at this point, we're at the point where people have no more room to accept that. I think we're at the point where no. I'm not for being voting for single issue candidates like based on like one thing, but I think these are the three things that are definitely something that we can't compromise on. Yeah. Because
the minimum wage,
the minimum wage, first of all, $15 an hour in California is Los Angeles, it's nothing.
But what about in Arkansas?
In Arkansas, I think it's a decent wage for that, but to me, it's like, if we're going to be like, oh, Arkansas 10, California 15, New York 20, like, no.
Do you know what the minimum wage would be adjusted for inflation in California?
Isn't it like $22?
$22 an hour.
Yeah.
And across the country, I think it's something like adjusted for inflation. It's north of 15.
Yeah.
It's not even the lowest at 50. It's north of 15.
No, it's just, it seems crazy and uncanny to us because we've been fed that. We've been fed that, oh no, if the minimum wage goes up, then it's bad for business because then prices go up. But other countries raise their price, their minimum wage, and their prices don't go up. Like McDonald's is an example of that too. Yeah. McDonald's, the Big Mac cost a few cents more than it does here, and their minimum wage is a lot higher than ours.
Well, people try to put that point on. You've seen it all over social media and Facebook when it comes to the price of a Big Mac here versus the prices of Big Mac there in Sweden. Yeah. But yet in Sweden, they protect their workers and they actually make the money. Oh, yeah. Really, to tell you the truth, it's not about that. They keep on talking about, they try to make the parallels when it comes to inflation, when it comes to that. But it's just all about the CEOs taking less.
Correct.
That's what it is. Yeah. If you cut their salaries in half, you can give all that money. Oh, exactly. I mean, really, it is.
It's greed.
It is.
And it's trickle-down economics doesn't work.
However, when it comes to the purity test, when we talk about it, I think that we're going to get some form of establishment Democrats and progressives coming to a conclusion. Yeah. In other words, I think we're going to be forced to have to settle for certain things. And that is one I fear, the minimum wage, where we're going to take it on the nose. In other words, I think you're going to see a candidate come out there who's going to be single-payer healthcare, for single-payer healthcare, like a Kamala Harris. And she's going to say, I'm against fracking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But she's going to say, well, we can't do the $15 an hour. I feel that they're going to succumb to some type of pressure. And when it comes to the minimum wage, and even though it's going to be a real knock on our chin, we're going to take it just to get some form of...
Well, because people are going to die, and single payer is one of the things, like, that's what I mean. It's like, at this point, we want people to live. We want people to have some sort of chance in America, but I think a lot of progressives, and correct me if I'm wrong, are not going to be very happy giving in so much, because right now it's at the point where, at least for millennials and my generation, I see so many of us having so much education, so much potential, but being stuck with student debt, being stuck in jobs that don't pay them.
A workforce that's terrible.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. It's like, let's be honest. Our grandfathers, and they got so much more. I hate when they say that, I'm a Generation X. I'm right between the millennials and the baby boomers and whatnot and the traditionalists. And I hate when I hear the baby boomers and the traditionalists say, oh, this is such an entitled generation and whatnot and stuff. Yet they weren't given the same opportunities that you were given. And how dare you talk about them that way? I mean, I can't stand it.
Back then, you could buy a house out of high school.
Yeah.
You were making good money as a career right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like,
you got money for pushing a broom.
School, and also Bernie Sanders brought this point up too. University used to be virtually free.
Yeah.
And public universities, and now it's like radical to think that we should have free education, which is another thing that we need to push for, because they're making a profit out of our education, and with banks and public schools, they're making a profit out of that, and so then we're like indentured servants into a system, and we can't ever get freed from our reins. And that's
when you talk about that, that's an area that makes it brings concern to me. When you talk about a candidate like Elizabeth Warren, when she's been so, with the funding of the war machine, what I'm saying? That's where the money's at. If we cut that in half, and we'll still spend more than the next 7 countries combined, that war budget, if we cut that in half, there's so much more money to do all those things. So what about, I have a question for you about that. Okay, so we talk about that, we talk about the purity test. And here's something, I think that the minimum wage is something that a somewhat progressive but establishment Democrat can get by with saying, okay, I'm not for raising the minimum wage across the board. We have to look at it in every single area. But there's one area where they can't skip on the period test. We talked about single payer.
Yeah.
We talked about fracking, because progressives are very, very kind to the environment. We want sensible environment regulations. But another one is guns right now. You can't slip on that.
Huh.
You can't be like, if you're against gun control, and I say this all the time, back when Obama had a full Democratic, House and Senate, they should have went for gun control there. Because that's an issue that,
Right.
all
Yeah,
the progressives, rather than going for a right-wing Republican Romney Care program and just pushing that through and half-stepping, that's something they could have went all the way on. Because once again, you talk about all the money that's given to the Republicans versus the Democrats, it's there. The NRA is just, they're strictly zoned in to the Republican establishment.
Well,
so that's another area.
all Republican, half of the Republican Congress is receiving money from the NRA.
right.
So they're obviously
$5.9 million in 2016 alone.
they're obviously going to do that their bidding. It's the same thing with with many issues. It's just about the money.
Yeah.
But I think that Democrats who are pushing for gun control across, like, for banning all guns, that's just not a possibility here right now. And I say that even for me, ideologically, no one would have guns. Like, who, if I lived in my world, there would be like no need for guns. But I'm not going to punish people who own handguns. I'm not going to punish
hunters with
gun
rifles.
manufacturers. We do need sensible gun legislation, and the majority of our country agrees that we need sensible gun legislation, and that means, why do you need an automatic weapon? Why do you need a weapon that can kill 60 people?
There's a zombie
in one
apocalypse
shot?
that could happen. It can happen at any time, and
No.
you need automatic weapons. Have you not watched The Walking Dead?
Yeah, no. You know what? The reason I get is because I get told, because it's our Second Amendment right, and the government shouldn't have the ability to take all our guns, because what if they turn against the people? They're going to go and take our guns, and it's like, that's the argument I hear.
Jim Jeffries talks about this. It's like, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight? Well, you're bringing an automatic weapon to a drone fight.
What are you going to do?
They got freaking drones.
Yeah.
They got missiles. If the
got
government
weapons
wants to
of
take us down, they're taking us down. Your Uzi 9mm ain't doing squat.
No.
So,
that's the thing.
I think we should stop here on this subject and get back into, because we're going to talk about some stuff. We want to get too far into.
It's true.
We don't want to waste our material.
One thing I do want to say, though,
Go
is
ahead.
if you're so fearful of your government coming to attack you, you need to work on creating a government that you don't have to fear from.
Exactly.
And that's
I
the
agree.
actual attacking the base of the problem, rather than just reacting again.
Exactly. We are the government. Let's put people in we trust.
Put it back
because
in
we don't
for
need
the people, by the people.
an AK-47 to defend ourselves from drones that are going to be flying by if we want to overthrow the government. So let's stick there. When we come back, we're going to talk about some more fun stuff. Maybe we'll talk about gun control.
We're going to be
police
talking
brutality.
a lot about police brutality and the current situation with Colin Kaepernick. And
Yes. When we come back on the couch.